And our presenter today will be Foy Maynor, VP of Sales with Paramount Workplace. There's us on your screen right there. That's us. I'll be handing it off to Foy in just a minute, but first I just want to talk to you about why we're here today. So if you've been involved in any software selection process, whether it's for your ERP or for add-on solutions or otherwise, you might have learned that the devil can sometimes be in the details. And hopefully you didn't learn that the hard way, but asking the right questions can help prevent miscommunication and pain in the long run in these situations. But ultimately, you just don't know what you don't know. So Paramount Workplace, we've talked with hundreds of ERP software users in 2017 who are looking to add procurement automation to their ERP system. And we've compiled this list of the top questions we heard from them. So whether you're looking at Paramount Workplace or another vendor, asking these questions can help make sure that you're not overlooking some important details that you should be considering in your search. So today, the agenda here, Foy's going to talk briefly about Paramount Workplace, and then he'll go through the questions and share the answers that we gave when we were asked these questions. And then we're going to leave some time at the end to hear your questions and answer those too. So Foy?
All right, Darcy, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. So my name is Foy Maynor. I'm the VP of Sales at Paramount Workplace. Now, I've actually been with Paramount for almost 16 years. February this year will be my 16th with Paramount. So I've been doing spend management solutions with Paramount since that time and was originally hired on to develop and build the Dynamics channel. So what I'm going to attempt to do today as we go through, as Darcy mentioned, is highlight some of the top questions that we get as we're walking through our procurement demonstrations, and then have people wanting to know some information about our products and what we do. And then also let you know a little bit about Paramount, and then certainly leave some time at the end for your own questions so that we can cover those. Now, Paramount as a company has been in business since 1995, and what we've always done is spend management solutions. So spend management to us is requisition to purchase order, the procurement components of receiving as well as invoice matching, and then as an offshoot of some of that spend management functionality, we also do expense, AP automation, as well as project timesheets. Now, we've done a couple of other webinars recently where we've talked about the overall benefits of combining your procurement and your accounts payable departments so that it's a one single solution and you're able to share information across those. So there's certainly some information there about that. But what we're primarily going to focus on today is the requisition and procurement side of things. Now, we are headquartered in metropolitan Detroit. I myself am just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, and then we have other sales and consulting representation around the U.S. as also in Canada, but primarily our support and our development as well as our administrative functions are out of our metropolitan Detroit office. And the solutions that we offer are mobile and web-based cloud solutions. We've got more than 110,000 users worldwide that are running our applications. We can run standalone, meaning that we can be the system of record for all of the information as it relates to procurement and purchasing. You can enter a requisition, have it route for approval, create the purchase order, do the receiving, the invoice matching, and then also handle the payment side from within our application as a standalone, and then output the details either in a report format or into an import-export type into another solution. We also integrate to many of the ERP solutions that are popular in the middle market, both on-premise as well as cloud-based, and we'll look at those here in just a minute. And our deployment can be SaaS. In other words, we can host our application and have it be interfaced and linked to the back office ERP. We can be hosted by a third party, and then our solution can also run on-premise. Now, on the next slide in just a moment, we'll look at some of the different ERPs that we integrate to. So some of those deployment options might be a little bit different depending upon what ERP is being run, but for the most part, we can do any of those for any of the integrations that we offer. Ideally, any of the spend management solutions that we offer or that others offer should be easy for employees, not just easy for the employees to enter it, but also easy and effective for the management to be able to approve, and then based upon the information being accurate, be powerful for accounting because you don't have to worry about incorrect information or any information that might have been duplicate entered. You have a single source of entry, and you have an audit trail of everything that happens throughout the entire process. Now, throughout the years, we found the product to be pretty much industry neutral. In other words, there's quite a few different industries that we work well in. Certainly, anybody that needs to manage their spend and control the purchasing process can make use of the solution. But there are about 14 different primary industries that we work within where we've seen more success, and those include sports and entertainment, also nonprofit, state and local governments, municipalities, and there's others that you can visit and look at on our website as well. But again, anybody that needs to manage spending can make use of the solution. So we do offer seamless out-of-the-box integration to the products that you see over on the right-hand side. This list continues to grow, and then also we can offer integration one-offs through a DI API that we have, and we have done that in many different instances as well. But these right here are out-of-the-box integrations. There are no additional cost or no additional charge for those. They have been set up, configured, and mapped, and the EAIC, or Enterprise Application Integration Connector, is done as a part of the implementation. For those that need multi-currency and multi-language, we offer that as a part of the solution as well. So certainly any North American-based companies that have that need, or any international companies. We've got quite a few customers that are installed internationally that may have a need for the different languages and the different currencies. We do hold to annual releases. We just released last October timeframe our Workplace 27 product, and we'll do another major release at the end of this year. You will probably see a 0.5 release coming out here soon that we'll do much more information on and marketing on, but overall we attempt to do one major release annually. It is a web-based solution, accessed via your browser, Safari, Chrome, Firefox, as well as Internet Explorer, and can also be accessed via your device using mobile apps on both Apple and Android. The idea is throughout the entire process to give deeper visibility anywhere at any time, make it easy to use and effective for all of the employees that need to touch the application. And then as a part of the security, because you do have many people that are interacting with the application, there's multiple authentication modes that are available as well. All right, so what we're going to do is I've got 10 questions that are here. These 10 questions are listed on our website in one of the blog areas that I'll show you at the very end, so you can have access to that. I'm going to go through the questions and talk about them, and then I'm also going to flip back and forth a little bit between some products so I can highlight these particular areas. Now, throughout the years that I've been doing this, one of the most common questions revolves around catalogs. Catalogs that can be used by the user to have a shopping experience that is easy for them, but then also catalogs that can be managed by the vendor. We'll talk about internal catalogs in another slide here in a minute, but this particular question revolves around a process called punch-out. So punch-out is an open industry standard. So not something that we invented, not something that we wrote, but an open standard like EDI that vendors can use in order to be able to have information available for a user to shop via a requisition or procurement application, and then ultimately have that purchase order created. The benefit to punch-out is that you are accessing the vendor site that they create for you as their customer, and you're able to create a shopping cart, and then once you check out from that cart, you'll populate a requisition. So the answer to that question is yes, and what we'll do now is flip over to a login, and we'll just take a quick look here. So I'm going to log in as Foy, and Foy is a requester. So as a part of the dashboard on the left-hand side here are the different catalogs that are available to this user. So in relation to the first question, we're talking about punch-out. I've got Office Depot as a punch-out vendor, so I'm going to click there to go out and shop that site. So office supply vendors are one of the most popular as far as punch-out goes. They're also very popular in the medical industry as well. But any organization can use and leverage punch-out as a part of the protocol here. If they don't do it themselves, in other words, if you have a vendor that doesn't know what punch-out is or doesn't support punch-out, there are third-party providers out there like Greenwing and Punch-Out To Go that can offer that service to the vendor, and then you'd be able to access the products. So as you can see up here at the top, I clicked on the catalog from my requisition entry screen, and I'm logged in as a member. So the catalogs that you're seeing here on the Office Depot site are specific to you as a customer of Office Depot in this particular example. So they are your catalogs with your items and your negotiated pricing, so that when I come in here and I pick from my values, or I go in and search to find items, once I find those items, I'm able to enter a quantity, add those to my cart, continue building my cart, and then ultimately check out. Now the checking out and a punch out process will put those items onto a requisition. So there's our 5 dozen ballpoint stick pins from Office Depot. Now a couple of things could have happened here. I could have done the punch out process, checked out from the cart, and the requisition would have been automatically created and submitted. So from a user standpoint, all they would need to do is shop that site, and then it would go on immediately through any approval process before a PO can be created. But I went ahead and had it create a requisition in this particular example. Reason I did that was so that you'd be able to see the information that's a part of the requisition, understand that the vendor is defaulted in, and that this is a requisition that can now be submitted. And then when you submit the requisition, it'll route for approval, the same standard approvals that you have set up for all of your other items that are going through the process based upon the users that are entering them. And then once it's fully approved, it's available to create a PO. So that order with Office Depot that we just did is not complete yet. It will not be complete until a purchase order is created. And then when the purchase order is created, it'll be sent electronically to the vendor. That will complete the transaction, and then they will ship you those items. So I logged in as Ben while I was talking there, and Ben is a reviewer or a buyer. So Ben has the ability to review the fully approved requisitions. And for demo purposes today, I haven't touched the approval process yet. I'm just going to go ahead and grab here a requisition that I've already done, and then have that requisition ordered and processed. So in this particular example, for demo purposes, I'm only acting on one item. I could act on multiple items as a part of this. That's a topic for a different discussion. But what I want to show here is that that punch out item that we just requisitioned that was fully approved is now going to create a purchase order. We created purchase order 85, and that purchase order was sent electronically via CXML. That's the protocol used for the transfer of information over to Office Depot. That completes the transaction, and now they will ship you those items. So that's the punch out process. So again, the answer to your question, or one of the main questions that we get, is you can certainly leverage what's set up on the vendor's website and have those items populate a requisition and still take advantage of all the approval routing processes that you have in place, the automatic creation and delivery of the purchase order. All right, so staying with the catalog theme here, the next question is, how difficult is it to create and manage internal catalogs? Well, I spent a couple of minutes talking about punch out and the advantages of having the vendor maintain the catalog for you, create the catalog for you, and that certainly works very well for your primary vendors, the vendors that you order a lot for. But there's also a concept of internal catalogs. So with internal catalogs, what that is are catalogs that the customer, the user, maintains on their own. So they're able to use a template that's easy to fill out with the information, the description, any pictures that they want to enter, and then have their own catalogs managed internally. You can import the information to create the catalog. You can update the catalogs. A benefit to internal catalogs is that you are in control of them as the customer. So they can be for different departments. They can be for different vendors or different users, and they can have items across multiple vendors rather than being related to just one vendor. So the answer to the question is, it's not difficult at all to create and maintain those internal catalogs. The benefit of having internal catalogs is, number one, as I just mentioned, you have them available on your dashboard to quickly shop. You can use your own icons that are visually appealing to you, and then have your own items that are available for this catalog. Just like on the punch out side, you can see pictures, descriptions, and pricing of the items, additional information about the items. and you can build your cart. This example, I'm going to build my cart from multiple catalogs, so not just limited to one catalog here. I continue to come in and shop multiple catalogs, and then when I'm done, review my cart, update or remove, and then click on create order requisition. Just like on the punch out side, that action of creating that requisition could have immediately submitted it and have it route for approval. So from a user's experience standpoint, it could be limited to a catalog. So what we're seeing a lot nowadays is for both punch out and internal catalogs, you're trying to make it easy for the user using a common shopping experience, just like they would at home, to be able to enter their requests that are work related. So you're able to do that, but then also have a lot more robust functionality needed for the power users. And also you have the benefit of, when you're using the catalogs, here is an emulator for a mobile app. You can actually come in, shop those catalogs via the mobile app, pick the items from the app, build your cart, and then once you're done building your cart, you can create a requisition from that mobile app. So again, that would be the mobile app that now has created requisition number 26 from one of those internal catalogs that I have. You can shop multiple catalogs, but that's now a requisition that's been submitted and entered and routed for approval. So we've extended the catalog functionality out to the mobile app so that you can enter and have those created there. And you'll see that in the mobile app example, as soon as that requisition was created, that requisition has routed for approval, so that it has the concept of being quick and easy to do, as well as simple for the user. All right, so question number 3. Can I restrict a user to only be able to see their own information? This is also a very popular question that we get asked, because obviously when you have a lot of users within the organization, you want to be able to control what they can see. Not just what reports they can see, but also what information within the requisition that they're able to enter are they able to view and access. So this is a definite yes. This is actually a really big part of a procurement application because of the controls that you have in place and because of the user experience that you can set up and configure. So if we go back here to a requisition that I've already got created, and we take a look here, this is the information that I've chosen to make available to FOI as a user. These are only a few of the many fields that are available, and if there are still fields here on the screen that would not be applicable for a user in your environment, you can continue to hide those fields. So certainly you can hide fields so that a user does not have access to them, so that they cannot see or view them, and of course if they can't see them, they can't enter any information into them. You also have the ability here to make fields required, so that certain users are required to enter pieces of information to make sure that it gets input. You're not allowed to submit if you don't enter the required details. Any of the fields that have a magnifying glass next to them are lookups or zooms. You can restrict those lookups and zooms so that they're only able to access an individual department or their departments, certain vendors, certain GL accounts or expense types, or even certain items. So you can control all of the access to the lookups by user as well, so that they're only going to be able to pick what you need them to be able to pick. And you can also control information in other ways. By department, there's GL mask and overlays that can manage the general ledger account based upon the department that's chosen. Oftentimes location can be used to mask or overlay the account, and expense type can be used to mask or overlay the account. So even though I have GL account available here on my screen for this particular user, you don't have to provide the GL account to the user. The user doesn't even have to know the GL account, but certainly if they know the department and the expense type, then they can have that information default the GL account, or even somebody else along the process can edit the requisition and input the GL account. So you have total control of the user's experience based upon what they know or don't know, but you're certainly going to be able to make sure that the requisition gets completed properly. Other controls that you have in place go back to reference those catalogs that we just used. If you use catalogs as your primary piece to be able to enter and submit requisitions, you've put controls in place already. because as a part of the catalogs, you can default vendors, you can default GL accounts, you can default departments, you can have information defaulted in so that it's going to automatically populate based upon what they select from that particular catalog. And again, the catalog can be limited by user. The shopping list that we have right here at the top of the screen can be limited by user, by department, or made available system-wide. So restrictions on users aren't just about what fields they may be able to have access to. It's also what you can automatically populate on those fields so that they don't have to be concerned with or worry about it there. That's a big part of the controls or of the processes that you can put, that you can put in place. And then certainly as we go back to our dashboard here, the outstanding transactions that we have showing are only going to be available based upon what you allow the user to see. So if a user only has access to their transactions, they'll only see their transactions. If they have access to other members of their department, they'll see those transactions as well and can view the information in details. And then the same with reporting. If you go look at some of the requisition reports that are available, when you look at these reports, you only can have access to the information you're allowed to have access to when you find and search for transactions, and then this view can also be exported. So can you restrict information? Yes, you have total control over the user's experience and what they're allowed to do, and those controls, those controls can actually also be a part of the approval process that you're doing because of what you're able to restrict. And it helps with the user experience as well. If you've got power users that know a lot of the details and you want them to be able to enter them, they can certainly have access to that information. Number 4, can I see how a transaction will affect the budget? The answer is yes. This becomes very important. I talked about us being not necessarily industry specific, but I mentioned some of the industries that we do very well in: not-for-profit, state and local governments, municipalities. Those are organizations that need to manage to a budget. Certainly there's many other that do as well, but because of what we do with general ledger budgets, and then also maybe project budgets or even vendor contracts, it's a very popular component to a procurement solution. So the budget visibility throughout the entire procurement process and to the particular budget that you want to be able to have access to. And there's several that are available. So if we come back in here to our requisition that we've been looking at, there's general ledger budgets available. So from a general ledger budget standpoint, you can come to a requisition line, and then based upon the GL that's on that line, you can go in and view the GL budget. Now, a little bit depending upon the ERP, this may be slightly different. We do have some ERPs that we integrate to, or we integrate to their encumbrance management or PO commitments functionality, so that it might be a little different than what you're showing here. But most of the ERPs obviously have GL budget capabilities. We integrate to those GL budget capabilities, and then based upon the GL account code that is chosen and the periods that you have set up and established, you can see the pre-encumbered, encumbered, actual total budgeted, and then what's remaining. So you have a view to the budget from the time that it's entered throughout the entire process. If you go over budget, you'll get a warning that you're over budget. You can still submit it sometimes, or you can have a hard stop depending upon what you want to do. But you'll get a warning if you go over the budget. If you do allow an item over budget to be submitted, it'll still be submitted, and you can have an approval routing rule based upon it being over budget as well. And it'll be very clearly indicated on the screen that that's the case. So if you compare requisitions to budgets, or any of the procurement transactions to budgets, this will cover the entire transaction. If you're looking at the general ledger budgets from the back office or ERP system, it'll also take into any amounts that are over in the general ledger budget to give you a true picture of where you are in the process, because it also takes into account any other requisitions or transactions that are in process. So that would be general ledger budget information. You can also do project budgets. Now, the project budget that I'm looking at here for line number 1 is a budget that I set up for Acme Company within our project system. We also integrate to other project solutions. In this example, you can see what was budgeted overall, and then where are the transactions and the dollar amounts of those transactions throughout the different process. Now, as I mentioned early on, we also have expense and time that I've got turned on for this user. So you see some buckets for that information, but this would be a view to the project information And with the project information, you're able to see that again throughout the entire process. It's another way to budget, and you can certainly use both project and general ledger budgets if you like to have those controls in place. And same thing, you can get a warning if you're over budget, you can route for approval if you're over budget, and you're able to view the budget details for those particular lines. There's also a component called vendor contract. Vendor contract is a contract that you can set up by vendor in order to enforce pricing or track spending. Vendor contract's a part of each requisition line, and if you're using vendor contract, we'll take a quick look at the setup of the vendor contract. You're able to have a contract that has been defined with contract periods, renewals, contract values, attachments of the contract, and overall contracted amount, and then be able to see where those amounts are in that contract. So that would be another method to be able to budget there as well. So you certainly do have the ability to manage requisitions and purchasing to budgets, see the impact on the budget, see if it's over budget, and route for approval based upon the budget and over budget conditions. And that's a very popular component to the procurement solution to be able to track throughout the process there. All right, so the next three questions. Number 5, does the approver receive a notification when items are pending approval? Number 6, can the approver receive a reminder if they don't approve in a timely fashion? And then number 7, can someone else approve in place of the approver if they're out of the office? Are all related to approval? So I'm going to cover those as a part of my discussion about the approval process as we look at that. So again, we'll flip back over here, log back in as our original requester, and talk a little bit about the approvals that are available. Most important to note is there are unlimited levels of approval. There are unlimited approval paths. So you can have as many approvers as you need in order to make sure something is routed for approval based upon what's been entered on the requisition. It's also important to note that from within the Paramount Workplace application, you can route for approval by line. So there's 12 different lines on this requisition. It is possible that each of those lines could, depending upon your routing rules, go to a different approver or through a different approval path based upon what's been entered on those requisitions. So you can have it route for approval based upon the header information. You can have it route for approval based upon the line information. You can use an all or nothing function here to keep everything together, even if you are using line levels approvals. But the important thing to note there is you have the ability to route for approval by project, by GL account code, by expense type, by department, by vendor, by item class. So even though the overall idea of approvals is to keep it simple and straightforward for most of the items, you certainly have the flexibility to manage the exceptions for those by the other information and the other details that are available on the requisition. So if we submit this requisition, that's when it goes through the approval process. And once it goes through the approval process, you'll be able to see the details down here at the bottom of the screen of that requisition. So you can see that Lisa needs to approve it and that Bob also needs to approve. If there were more than the 2 approvers that I have here, you'd see the entire list of approvers. The arrow and the bold print indicate the pending approver before it can move on through the process. So at any point in time, you can come in and see where you are in the approval process by line. Certainly your dashboard shows you where the transactions are, whether they're waiting for approval or approved or disapproved or canceled. So you've got that information there as well. And you've also got an email notification that goes out to let the approver know that they have requisitions that are pending their approval. So slide number 5, or question number 5, I mean, was do they receive a notification? Yes, they can receive an email notification, but then they could also see on their dashboard when they have items pending approval and where those items are in the process. This is a sample of the email notification that can go out. You can see the details. You can see the comments that have been entered. There's links in the email. Click on the links in the email, and that'll take you into Workplace and allow you to approve or disapprove. You can also reply to the message. If you reply to the message, then you can use the brackets here. If I put a Y into the bracket at the header, it would approve everything on that requisition. If I put a Y at the line, it would approve the line. If I put an N at the line, it'll disapprove the line. And you can also enter notes to the requester. So you can actually approve and disapprove from within the email reply, as long as you have the text entry capabilities here. So yes, if it's on your mobile device where you get this email, you can do that. So you can approve and disapprove from the initial email that goes out. If you need more information or more details, you can use the links in the email to go into the browser and approve or disapprove there. But that would be one of the ways that you can continue on with this notification that you get to make sure that you approve or disapprove those items. Now you can also use your mobile device. So if we come back to the mobile device that we looked at earlier, to be able to approve and disapprove as well. Click on the approval button down at the bottom. You can see how many requisitions you have pending your approval. You can see the information about the requisitions. You can do a little bit of drill down and see what lines are on the requisition, and you can approve or disapprove. You can see additional line item information, and you can input notes here on your mobile device. So using the app on the mobile, you can approve or disapprove at the header level, at the line level, with notes, see the information and details that's populated, that information there, and then act on those in this manner. And then once you do that, those particular items would be approved. When you approve items, they go on through the process to the next approver if there is one. When you disapprove items, they go back to the requester. And yes, email notifications can go out to the requester when items are approved or disapproved, keeping them up to date with what's going on. And they can also see that on the dashboard as well. Now, also as a part of the approval process, you can approve via your browser. So if you want to log in as the approver, you see a to-do list similar to what we saw on the mobile device. You can load what you have pending your approval. And then when you load what you have pending your approval, you can see the information there. So here's the items that are on this requisition that need to be approved. You can see the details. You can see the attachments, and all of that information is available. And you can also edit here as well. So if you need to add or change information, you can edit the requisition lines with a full audit trail so that you can audit anything that was changed on the requisition, who changed it, when they changed it, what they changed it from, and what they changed it to. You've also got notes to the requester, just like we saw on the email, and also like we're seeing here on the mobile device, and also here with the little icon where you can enter notes to tell them about any changes that you made, any comments that you might have, or any instructions that you want to provide. And those will go in an email and also appear on the log. And you can approve at the session level, approve at the header level, or approve at the line level. And just like the other methods, when you approve or disapprove, then they'll move on through the process or go back to the original requester with those notes. So you also, from the email notification, can get a reminder. So if that approver does not approve in a certain amount of time, they'll get another email as a reminder that they have items that are pending approval. Another feature that's available within Paramount Workplace, you can also bypass a level of approval. So you could bypass that approver if they don't approve in a certain period of time. It'll never bypass the final approver, but it could certainly bypass approvers in the process that aren't doing their job from an approval side. That would be another option. And yes, you can have alternates. Alternates can approve in the place of the original approver. As an approver, if I'm going to be sitting in a meeting, I can enable my alternates and they can approve in my place while they are enabled. I can also schedule my alternates with from and to dates, and they can approve during those periods of time. So yes, you can have someone else approve in the place of the original approver if they're out of the office or unavailable for any reason. And one last thing on the approval note, you do have what's called ad hoc approvals. So as a part of the approval process, when you're logged in as the approver, you do have the ability to send this requisition to another person that would not normally be a part of the approval process. It can go to them for their approval, and then it would resume the typical or normal approval process based upon the information that's been entered. There's a lot of questions that revolve around the approval process. The three that we listed are the typical questions, but as you can see by some of the information that I went into, there's a lot of other capabilities that revolve around approval that you can use as well. All right, so back to our slides. Number 8, how do you set up routing rules? So this is a big question. I mentioned earlier about the unlimited levels of approval, the unlimited approval paths that we have, and then the robust line level approval functionality. So you can get very detailed with your approval routing rules. As we've been talking to analysts over the years, one of the biggest things that we hear is, yes, you can approve by the details on the requisition, but what you don't want to do is set up your approvals to a point where you're slowing down the process, because one of the obvious ideas behind implementing a procurement solution is that you're speeding up the process. You're cutting down the amount of time that a requisition spends waiting approval before a purchase order is created. So when you think about setting up rules, you do want to make sure that the simple things, the things that are on catalogs or shopping lists, are going to be easier to approve, maybe 1 level or 2 levels of approval. Maybe things related to a project go to a project manager for their approval. In addition, certainly items that are over budget can have another level of approval than the standard one, but the approval routing should be efficient and effective for the organization, looking to catch those things that aren't normal, but then certainly with the other controls that you have in place, let those go through. So with that being said, we'll flip back over to the login and take a quick look at some of the different options that you have from an approval side. Now, the easiest way and most straightforward way to set up for approvals is based upon the user setup. So if I go grab a user here on our setup screen and I move down here to the right-hand side, we have what we call position and supervisor-based approvals. These are essentially the hierarchical approvals that most everybody's used to if you have a paper-based, email-based, or Excel-based requisition system. It goes to approval based upon who the employee is, what their position is in the organization, what their approval threshold is, and then who is their supervisor or who is their manager. So as the users are being set up and configured for what they're going to have access to, you can define positions. So the position is, and I've got this level 1, level 2, level 3 in my particular demonstration here, is what is your position in the organization and how much can you technically enter a requisition or approve up to, and then you define that. And then you set up who the person's supervisor is. And once you define who the person's supervisor is, then that is the person that it's going to route to when the approval level needs to go there. And then you can quickly and easily set up the alternates who would approve in their place. This is the hierarchical approval. It's the manager, the manager's manager, the manager's manager's manager. The typical approval process that we see within most organizations, but you're not limited to just that. This is very simple and straightforward to set up, but the other exceptions that we talked about, when you want to approve by line, those are accomplished by approval lists and routing rules. So when we come in here and look at that, what you're essentially doing is you're setting up your approval list. Name them something that makes sense. Approved for development department, approved for over budget, approved for greater than $1,000. Because one of the big benefits is you can see this description as a part of the line, so you know why it's going for approval. So this is the approval routing for the development department. You also have parallel approvals available. Parallel approvals take place when you've got 2, 3, or 4 people that need to approve out of a group of 5. So maybe you got 5 different managers, and as long as 2 of those 5 approve, it can move on. You can enable or set up that. Then you define what's your level of approval. So again, a little bit of the hierarchy of the approval. And then you define who are the alternate or alternates for that particular person and whether or not they get an email or not. So for the approval list, think of it as this is the person or persons who is actually going to do the approval when a certain condition arises. So that's one of the ones that we just used on the requisition that I had going through the process. And then the routing rules are where you really are able to set up the intricate details for the lines if needed. You determine what user or roles does this rule apply to, and then what are the rules. So you can see as a part of my development routing rule, I've got, it's in the requisition department and it's greater than $100. It goes to Lisa, which that was the dev APR that we just did. If it's greater than 1,000, it goes to Ben. I know it goes to Ben because that's a part of that list. And then if it's over budget, it would go to our controller. So you're able to see here that you've got the different filters that are there what order or what precedence those take place. This is looking at it by the information on the line. So this is when I was talking about earlier, you can use pretty much any of the details on the line to view. Here's all of the different criteria that you can use to select from. So as I mentioned, you can get very detailed, but you want to kind of use this for the exceptions and for the things that you want to keep an eye on and monitor, and use this in conjunction with your position and your supervisor-based approvals. This would all be done as a part of your implementation. You'd be trained on how to do this from a consulting standpoint, so that you'd be able to set up and maintain your own routing rules. But again, it is easy to do and set up, but you've also got the flexibility and the capability to have much more robust and detailed approvals at the line level as needed by the as needed by the user, or based on what you have set up there in the organization. All right, so last two slides, and then we'll cover a little bit more. All right, so can you view the attachments that originate in the procurement software within my ERP? The answer to that is yes. So as we were going through a requisition example, and we'll jump back into one here in a moment, you saw that you have the ability to attach files. You can attach files at the header level, you can attach files at the line level, and you can attach files throughout the entire procurement process. And as you attach those files, you can have those be available, so that if you go over into the ERP, they can be viewed by a user that's there once the PO has gone over, or once the voucher has gone over after the invoice matching has been done. Again, a little bit different depending upon some ERPs based upon the APIs that they offer on how it goes over or how it's accessible. But a big part of the overall process and linking the procurement department with the accounts payable department is allowing them to see and access the information that was done during the procurement or purchasing process. That can include quotes, that can include pictures, designs, or specifications, and then be able to see that over in the ERP. And certainly that can also include invoices if you're doing check requests or invoice matching to PO, so that they're able to see what was actually done there. So the answer to that question is yes. You want more details and want to see that, we can certainly help you with that based upon the individual ERP. And then number 10, can I see the status of a voucher or payment from within the procurement software? The answer to that question is also yes. Again, important part of what we've been talking about is linking the two different silos of information between purchasing and accounts payable together, is providing not only information over to the ERP system, but then also having that information be available here. So if we go to a requisition that I've got that was entered a while ago that I know already created a PO, and I come in and look at the details for that, you can see that you're able to see the line amount, what hasn't been invoiced, the voucher that was created, the voucher number, the voucher date, and then if it had been paid, you'd see the payment number, the payment date, as well as any other details. So you have that information that's available to you. Again, the information may be slightly different depending upon your back office or ERP, but it certainly has that information for the user. And then just while we're here, here's the log that's available. One of the questions that I don't have in my list, but it's also a very popular log, is, can I see what's going on with that requisition at every step? And the answer is yes. Submitted, approved, any changes that were made, processed, notes that were entered, those are available for each line as well. So you've always got the audit trail of where is the requisition in the process, what has happened to it, what needs to happen to it as it goes through each of those ones. And then, as I mentioned earlier, here's an attachment. So there's an attachment that's a part of that line. That attachment's available within the workplace application, but that's also what I referenced earlier that you'd be able to view once it went over into the ERP as well. And I've got that's our 10 questions. I've got just a few more that I added. These are also popular questions. They're a little bit different. The ones that we focused on in the top 10 were more questions regarding functionality. But then for cost questions, how much does the application cost? So the answers to this are going to vary based upon the modules and or number of named users that you need. So it's going to vary based upon the functionality that you have. It's also going to vary based upon the deployment, whether you're on premise or whether you're in a SaaS environment or a subscription environment. SaaS is obviously where we would be hosting it. Subscription would be where it would be hosted by someone else or by a third party, and you're just simply paying monthly. So costs can vary based upon that. From an on-premise deployment standpoint, the modules are anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000, and the users can be anywhere from $200 a user all the way down to $40 a user, depending upon the level. From a SaaS deployment process, you're looking at modules that are going to be in the $200 per month range, and then users in the $4 or $5 per month range. So certainly, if you need more details on pricing, talk to us. We can learn a little bit about your requirements, what modules and functionality that you need, and then we can get you a quote that would also include any implementation estimates. As far as how long it takes to implement, we look at a 3-month or 90-day time frame, but that is also going to be dependent upon modules, users, and then what your timeline is and the amount of effort that you're able to provide. We have our own consultants on staff that can do implementations. We also work with a lot of partners that have been trained and certified on our products to be able to implement. So that can be dependent, or that can be done by either group, and that can also, again, be dependent upon what are the different modules and functionality that you're looking at. And then what if I switch to another ERP? That's actually a huge benefit of the solution. I mentioned earlier the different ERPs that we integrate with and that you can use Workplace with. The core product is essentially the same across all of those ERPs. So if you were to switch to another ERP, then you would be able to continue to use Workplace with some different connections, maybe some different ways of doing things as far as the information that you're going to see and how it goes over. But overall, you'd be able to leverage the experience that you have with Workplace if you were to move to another ERP solution. And we're almost going to get to your questions here, but I do want to point out our website. So this is our website, paramountworkplace.com, that you can take a look at. One of the things that we've been doing lately with our webinars that we're doing on a monthly basis is basing those webinars on some blogs that we're doing. So here, if you go and look at the different blogs that are available, here's the top 10 procurement demo questions asked and answered, which is what today's is based on. We also just did another blog on the 11th that we'll look to do and leverage some additional information on. And then certainly as you scroll through here, there's some really good ones talking about some of the other verticals that we do well in and that procurement does well in, and then can look at those. You've also got the different publications that are available based on analysts that we work with and talk to. This was one that just came out yesterday, I believe, in conjunction with Paystream. And you've got some of the other details there, travel and expense, invoice workflow automation. So certainly take advantage of looking at the different information that's on our website. And then you also have the ability to access and look at demonstrations of the product as well. But no matter how you get the information, webinar, website, YouTube videos, we're always available to help and assist with any additional information and details that you might need. And with that, I'm going to flip back over to my PowerPoint slide. And Adrian, you can read out any questions you like over the time that we have left, and I'll either answer those while we're here, or we can certainly defer them and take them one-on-one if we need to.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Foy. I do have a poll I'd like to launch while we're announcing the question, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So, are you interested in learning more? If you could just take a second to answer this question, that would be great. And I do have a couple questions here, Foy. Can this be integrated with our manufacturing production scheduling system so that the required materials will be on hand to complete the manufacturing process?
Yeah, so we have done some integrations with manufacturing and distribution type third-party products. So the simple answer is yes. We'd love to learn more about that so we can know what the specific requirements are. But yes, we've done it so that we would be able to pull in the information in order to create the requisition. We integrate to some inventory components within some of the ERPs. We also have our own inventory application as well, where depending upon where you maintain the inventory, you can replenish inventory, transfer or release items from inventory. But certainly that's one where in a minute we'll switch to the last slide. You'll have my contact information on there. Reach out and see if it's one that we've done before, or certainly I can get somebody from our product group involved and have some additional conversations. But it is possible, yes.
And we are a channel partner for Sage 100. Do you have a channel program? If so, how do we sign up?
Yes, we do have a channel program. Again, you can reach out to me, and I'll be glad to get you additional information about that channel program, and then talk about getting additional information to your team as well as your customers. So you can certainly contact me in order to be able to get that set up, and I'll get you the proper paperwork as well as answer any questions.
And I'm not seeing any more questions. I just would ask the audience, if you do have any questions, just click on that question mark button next to your name and key in your question. And we'd love the opportunity to read your question for Foy so that he could answer it.
And I threw up the next slide on there, Adrian. I'm not sure if the poll's still open or not, but if you see my slide, you should be able to see the
we can see your slide, so perfect. Okay. There's Foy's contact information and Darcy's. And with that said, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. Thank you two so much for spending time with us, and thank you, audience, for taking time out today to spend an hour with us. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.
And with that said, thank you so much. Everybody have a great weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.